increasingly relying on people to pick the cotton by hand. A number of merchants told me over 90% of the cotton is hand-picked. We're cutting the guided tour short. We want to go into the countryside to see what's really going on. Hopefully nobody's followed us out of the complex back there. We phoned our minder and told him we were heading for one of the tourist destinations in the south, and then got on a plane to a northern city. We arrived in Khiva, one of Uzbekistan's most beautiful cities. It's a popular tourist destination where we hoped we might blend in. Then we drove out to look for the cotton fields. We've been driving down the road for about 20 minutes, and all you can see on either side are just fields of cotton. Despite the assurances given at the conference that child labor was illegal, here we were, in a field full of school children, hard at work. It's pretty heavy. Everybody's pretty curious about us being here. There's loads of children. And most of them have stopped working just to have a look at what we're doing, so we don't want to stay here too long. I did find one boy who was willing to talk. One of the boys told me he was getting paid just 2 pence per kilo. That's 40% less than what officials in the capital told me cotton pickers were supposed to be paid. Down the road, I met this 9-year-old girl. She told me she'd been picking cotton since 8 in the morning and would only return home at sunset. She gets a brief break for lunch. Human rights groups estimate some 450,000 children like her are shut out of schools and working in the cotton fields of Uzbekistan every harvest. For this little girl, picking cotton under the scorching sun didn't seem unusual.
They're being denied their education, they're being put into a situation where they're forced to work. It can be back-breaking work, they're not fed properly, they're not looked after, there's no health and safety. They're in fields where, for example, pesticides are being used. This is a big problem for these kids.
Early the following morning, we set out to continue our investigation. I went into this school. Although it was a weekday, it was empty of students. We were told everyone had been sent to pick cotton. Then we saw something we were told happens in schools across the country with every harvest. Police marshalling hundreds of children onto buses bound for the cotton fields. We filmed secretly out of a bag. You can see a row of trucks next to the buses being filled with bedding and mattresses that the children will sleep on once they get to the fields. The convoy gets its own police escort. But just as we started filming the buses pulling away, we were caught and detained by the police. We've been taken in to have our passports looked at. We were held and questioned for 3 hours. The police said they would confiscate the tapes we had shot in the cotton fields. While they weren't looking, we switched the tapes and left them blanks. We were warned we'd be thrown out of the country if we were caught filming again, so we decided to get the first flight out. Back in London, I wanted to find out just how much Uzbek cotton ends up here. While some of the cotton is made into clothes before leaving Uzbekistan, most of it is exported to the booming garments industry of Asia by Western traders. Bangladesh is the top buyer, so I focused my investigation there. In Bangladesh, raw cotton is turned into yarn and then woven into fabric. Then it can be mixed with yarns from other sources or materials before being turned into clothing that's shipped around the globe. The industry claims that it's this mixing of materials from many sources that makes it impossible to trace cotton back to the field.
This is the paper trail of the supply chain.
But one British clothing company that explicitly bans the use of Uzbek cotton in its products said finding the source of raw materials was as easy as making a few phone calls.
I asked our supplier in Turkey to follow the paper trail of the supply chain all the way back to the producer of cotton in the Aegean region of Turkey. It took them about 3 days to send us the documents. I also asked our Indian supplier to do likewise, and it took them 24 hours.
We're doing an investigation into the supply chain. So I made a few phone calls too. Presenting myself as a textile magazine journalist, I found 2 factories in Bangladesh that make clothes for the UK market and source some of their cotton from Uzbekistan. One British company that both said they produce clothing for was Asda's George brand. But other names were coming up as well. The Delta Group, with a production capacity of 1.5 million garments per month, said Matalan was its major UK client. 80% of its cotton comes from Uzbekistan and other Central Asian countries. The Radiance Group, which said it used yarn supplied to it by a company using Uzbek cotton, makes clothes for Burton. Matalan confirmed that Delta in Bangladesh was one of its suppliers, but added,
Matalan does not designate where its suppliers supply from. We do not audit the thousands of suppliers to our suppliers, as some simple garments of clothing we take for granted and wear each day contain up to 50 different components.
In the case of Topman, its owner Sir Philip Green confirmed that his company had ordered a trial run of the hoodie we saw at the fair, but said they did no further business with the supplier. Sir Philip, who also owns Burton, said,
Our companies buy garments and do not usually have visibility of the source of the raw materials. We rely on our suppliers to source all raw materials and to operate according to our detailed code of conduct, which includes the statement that child labour must not be used. We would not be supportive of using cotton in products where the cotton has been picked in the manner you allege. We are now conducting our own investigation with our garment suppliers into the source of cotton fibres used in our garments. This is a complex issue, and an immediate boycott might be premature until we have more detail.
Asda was the only company to come up in our investigation that called for an improvement of working conditions in Uzbekistan.
We're extremely concerned that child labour may have been used to pick cotton that could have been used in fabric supplied to factories in Bangladesh, and that ultimately this may have been used in making clothes sold by George. We're calling on other retailers and the UK government to join us in encouraging the authorities in Uzbekistan to take urgent action to improve working conditions in the cotton industry.
But even Asda stopped short of saying it would no longer use Uzbek cotton.
Plexus Cotton was established in 1990. Since when it has...
So what about Plexus, the British company with an office in Uzbekistan that told us they buy Uzbek cotton? According to their website, the company's hallmarks are integrity and awareness, and it prides itself on having a great depth of experience and knowledge of the whole region. But when we told them that child labor was widespread in Uzbekistan and enforced by the state, Plexus's lawyers sent us a letter saying their clients were unaware that child labor was taking place in the country. They provided us with this statement.
Plexus Cotton is a company that places great emphasis on integrity and fairness. We are committed to sharing the wealth we create with our partners, employees and the communities in which we operate. Plexus Cotton currently sources only a tiny fraction of its total cotton trade through Uzbekistan. We have been categorically assured by the Uzbekistan government that the use of child labour by the Uzbekistan government is prohibited. If evidence is produced to show that this is untrue, we will immediately cease trading in Uzbekistan cotton.
The reality is that many companies either don't know or don't